Okay, so I'm just going to kind of be discussing just really the broad sense of what my research project involved, which was the effects of simulated drought and heavy rainfall events on the growth and sexual reproduction of a local plant called a grass-leaved goldenrod. Okay, so when I say extreme events, there are quite a few different definitions that refer to extreme events, but in terms of what I'm discussing, it just refers to an uncommon or rare weather event. So they're the ones at the tail ends of the spectrum. So the two that I looked at were drought and heavy rainfall. So drought just refers obviously to a prolonged period where there's no rain, often resulting in some sort of water reduced water resources, and often they're quite threatening to the environment. And then in terms of heavy rainfall, this is used to describe a single rainfall event during which a lot of water falls over a shorter period of time. So in the southern Ontario region, a drought generally can be considered about 30 days of no rainfall, although there's varies quite a lot. Some of our droughts last maybe up to and over 8 weeks. Heavy rainfall in the area can be considered maybe about 95 millimeters of rain that falls within an hour to a couple of hours. Actually, there was a heavy rainfall event that took place in 2005, during which 103 millimeters of rain fell in less than half an hour. And this actually caused one of Ontario's most expensive weather disasters of ever, and it cost the province over $500 million. So the reason why we were looking at this is because extremes, like Leah said, are expected to increase in both frequency and intensity. So that's why they're really starting to gain increased focus from the scientific community, because this is becoming a problem. Okay, so we looked at plants. So obviously water is vital to all life, including plants, and drought can be very severe to their life. So obviously this is just very brief ways that they are impacted. So the main way in which they're impacted is through the loss of turgor pressure. So this is responsible for cell expansion, cell division, and then ultimately the plant's growth. Also, photosynthesis is greatly impacted by droughts, and as well as nutrient uptake. So all of these things affect the plant's ability to grow. And in that, reproduction can be affected as well. Generally, there's a positive correlation between the growth and the size of the plant and their reproductive output. Obviously, this depends on the type of plant, but we can see that it can negatively impact the reproduction of the plant. In terms of heavy rainfall, generally what I found when I was doing my preliminary research is that a lot of research is being mainly focused on the way that these events are affecting the entire plant community. So there's not really too much information on how they're affecting the growth or reproduction of a given plant. So we're not really sure as of right now. But in general, we can say that if a heavy rainfall event occurs, it could lead to flooded conditions, and this can be very detrimental to plants because it makes it very difficult for them to uptake oxygen. So this can impede their growth, and again, it can affect their reproduction. So this is what we wanted to look at with this project. Okay, so because the research that, the preliminary research that I was doing, I didn't really see too much on the actual physical effects of these events on plants. I wanted to look directly at just one species and how physically it was affected. So in terms of growth, I was looking at things like just stem height and like the weight of the plant. And in terms of reproduction, I was looking at just quantitative traits like flower number and seed number and seed mass to see if anything was affected by such events. Okay, so how this was done, and this was also alongside with another project that Liette was doing. So we established these experimental plots in the field, and what we did was we dug a 30-centimeter deep trench around the experimental plots, and we lined them with greenhouse plastic in order to prevent any water entering the drought plot or exiting the extreme rainfall plot that we were looking at. For the drought plots, Liette's husband was kind enough to construct us some drought plots, the shelters, and then we lined those with greenhouse plastic in order to prevent any rainfall from entering the plots. We had a little bit of a malfunction with them because we used, the wood was too weak, so it actually ended up snapping midway through, so we had to go back and you had to redo them with stronger wood. So that was just something that we had to fix along the way. In terms of the heavy rainfall plots, we added a 10 centimeter above ground barrier just to prevent any runoff, so we can ensure that the water that we applied stay within that plot. And we did this by manually adding 100 liters of water to each of the 5 plots, which were scattered all over a field, and we had to manually haul huge jugs of water and dump it on the plants with over an hour. This was quite challenging, but we got it done. Okay. So just some of the limitations that that I experienced while doing this project were at the beginning, the plots that we actually selected, because they were had to do with another project, I couldn't select plots that had a lot of my study species in it. So it just by chance, the ones that the heavy rainfall plots, 2 of the plots didn't even have any of my species that I was looking at. So I had to go and pick more from a different one. And out of those plots, they were just the smallest ones out of just giant ones that were right beside it. So that was just something that I had to deal with. Predation was another huge thing that really impacted some parts of my study. There were so many grasshoppers in this field that every time you stepped, hundreds of them would just fly everywhere. So by the time it actually came to me harvesting my plants to do my analysis, some of them were completely shredded. There was just a stem left, so I had nothing to even work with. They ate all my flowers pretty much. I looked at 30 individuals per treatment, and just for one of my the treatments, there were only 4 individuals that even had flowers left that I could look at. So my sample size was drastically reduced, and this obviously affected my analysis quite severely. Given that, this was only done over one study season, because my project was only for just the 1 year. So I wasn't even able to go back and look at previous trends that I might have seen in. So it really made it difficult for some of the analysis where I had only a sample size of 4. So why studying extremes is becoming important is because it's not only something that we're expecting to see an increase in, it's already happening. The intensity of these extremes are already increasing. So if we're able to simulate them in the field, obviously at a quicker pace, we can maybe start to anticipate possible changes that might arise in the future. Such changes could be changes in community structure. So obviously some plants are going to be better able to cope with these such changes rather than others, and they're going to have a competitive advantage over those ones. So this can lead to entire community changes in terms of diversity, abundance, and it can even cause some local extinctions. So once the entire community of a plant, of entire plant community changes, this could then eventually ripple out and affect other organisms, and we can start seeing ecological changes at a bigger scale. Okay, I'm just gonna briefly go over like how I experienced this project as an undergrad. It was a lot different than anything I've done. So it was nice to actually be able to apply the knowledge that I've developed over the course of my my time at Brock. It gave me a lot of sense of independence rather than just going into a lab and reading a procedure and carrying out and then answering a bunch of questions. Like, it was really interesting to just go think of something and then develop it and do it and just look at what happens. It was definitely an interesting experience, and it also gave me an insight to the role of a researcher. So seeing the evolution of the entire process of what happens with a research project, from developing the idea to designing a project, and then analyzing what you find and putting it together into a final project. So it was a great experience. That's it.